Well, good afternoon, everybody. I should know, I just had lunch, it's afternoon. My name is Evie Wold, and I work in placement services for vocational rehab services, and I'm here with Marcy. You want to do your intro quick?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Marcy Jasper with Vocational Rehab Services, program specialist in placement, part of the little group here that helped develop these bite-sized learning modules. So welcome. Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, so just a little background. I know I've been in tons of meetings talking about this. I know Marcy has, and others that have been in this group. We've talked to our internal VRS staff, we talked to our partners, but in case you don't know much about the background of this, just wanted to catch you up to speed. I'm involved with a group called Maxability, which is a group of employers and service providers out of the Rochester area. And the chair of that group her name is Dawn Kirshner, and she's a diversity and inclusion HR person at Mayo Clinic in Rochester there. So she's super active in this group, and she chairs, and she really thinks outside the box. And she was meeting with other employers, other HR people, talking about diversity inclusion. And a lot of, she was encountering people saying, we would love to get little pieces of learning, like bite-sized learning that we can deliver to our teams over the course of time to kind of reinforce that messaging. So she came to our group and talked about the idea of developing this concept. And luckily, Marcy came on board. Daisha Van Alstine from SSB. Anne's been kind of our glue that's held us all together with this project, and Dawn Kirshner. We developed these modules that we'll show you today, and some activity cards that go with them. And now we're just into the launch and the beginning and the marketing of this. So we're excited to have you here today. And so kind of how this will go this afternoon, we're going to present a module to you. You'll learn that all the modules are around 20 minutes. So they're just little kind of scratching the surface on the topics, and we'll present one of the modules to you. After that, we're going to go into breakout rooms. Just like if you were presenting this to an employer, they would have an activity that they would do. So we're going to ask you to do that. Then we're going to come back together. And then we're going to talk about some strategies for delivering this to businesses and all the tools that you need to kind of get it done. So anything to add to that, Marcy?
I think just one thing, when we were doing each of these modules, we had other people helping us too. So with each of the modules, one of the people that were presenting had a disability, and they gave us guidance on some of it too. So that was really nice to get their feedback and having them help present.
Thank you. So the first module that we developed is called Defining Disability and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So Marcy and I are going to go through the PowerPoint. She'll share her screen, and we'll go through this just as we would if we were giving it to an employer. So let me adjust mine, Marcy, just for a second so I can see. I lost my notes, so hang with me just a second. Okay. All right, so I'll start it off. Welcome to this bite-sized disability learning module called Defining Disability and the Americans with Disabilities Act. To start our conversation, it's important to explain why this and other disability modules for business were created. Disabilities affect 25% of Americans and influence today's drive for a strong economy and diverse workforce. We hope to assist employers and businesses in their disability hiring and inclusion efforts. So the intent of these modules is to provide education that is simple, impactful, and relatable. Each module is about 20 minutes and can be delivered either virtually or in person at a team meeting or a huddle. The goal of these modules is to further your work group's understanding of various disability topics and ways of creating an inclusive work environment to successfully hire, onboard, and retain employees with disabilities. Today's module is just one in a series. You're encouraged to watch them all to learn more about the opportunities in this disability inclusion workspace. Whether you know it or not, about 1 in 4 people you may meet has a disability, according to the Center of Disease Control in 2018. That's about 61 million people with disabilities. If you take a moment to think about people you know in your family and in the community, do you know a person with a disability? Disability really spans all age, gender, ethnic, and racial categories. You don't look like you have a disability. I would never have known unless you told me. Many people with disabilities have heard this statement. Arguably, though, the majority of people with disabilities have conditions that are not obvious to others. Though we typically think of the wheelchair image when we think of a disability, many people have invisible disabilities. Think about depression, diabetes, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorders, and cancer.
Sorry, trying to keep it all straight. Hidden, invisible. Gotta move my slide. It's not moving. There we go. Hidden, invisible, or visible. The importance of disability inclusion in the workplace was highlighted with the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. The ADA is a civil rights law that was passed in 1990 and implemented in 1992. It has 5 titles to it. But today we're talking about Title I, which deals with employment of people with disabilities. The intent of Title I is to prohibit private employers, state and local governments, employment agencies, and labor unions from discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities in the job application process, hiring, firing, advancement, compensation, job training, and other terms, conditions, and privileges of employment. The ADA covers employers with 15 or more employees, including state and local governments. So what does this mean? This means that the ADA prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. It means it requires employers to make reasonable accommodations for qualified individuals with the disability to be able to perform the essential functions of the job. Essential functions of the job, essential functions are defined as the fundamental job duties of the employment position the individual with the disability holds or desires. Failing to do so, unless the accommodation is unreasonable, may be considered discriminatory. ADA is there to level the playing field for individuals with disabilities to prevent employers from making assumptions about their abilities and drive accommodation solutions for their individual success. With the ADA in place, employers are being asked to assess an individual's abilities and needs based on the essential functions of the job held or desired, potential reasonable accommodations that might enable that person to address disability and job-related barriers, and values, skills, and strengths that the individual can bring to the position.
So you might be asking yourself, who is someone that fits under the definition of a disability? How does the ADA define disability? That's a great question. A person with a disability is someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. The next slide will show a few of the major life activities that will help you better understand the practical application of this definition. For example, a person with a physical disability may have a personal care attendant at home to assist with daily living. Someone with a vision impairment may use a screen reader to read emails at home or at work. It could also be someone with ADHD, a brain injury, or migraines that has difficulty with concentrating.
So who has protection under the ADA? To be protected by the ADA and classified as a qualified person with a disability, an individual must have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. They must satisfy your job requirements for educational background, employment experience, skills, license, and other qualification standards that are job related, or be able to perform those tasks that are essential to the job with or without reasonable accommodation. So here's a listing of potential conditions that would be likely covered under the ADA. It's not an exhaustive list, and further, the name, label, and diagnosis doesn't guarantee that an individual has a limitation in a major life activity. However, if a person has a diagnosis or a number of diagnoses listed above, and they're impacted by having a limitation in a major life activity, that individual would have protections under the ADA to request a reasonable accommodation and ensure they're treated equally and fairly in all stages of employment. We'll go more in depth on accommodations and the accommodation process in a future module. So look forward to more to come on that subject.
So in summary, individuals with disabilities have a lot of talent, skills, and strengths to contribute to the workplace. People with disabilities have a right under the ADA to fair and equal treatment and reasonable accommodations to be successful in their employment. The process to identify who has these rights and needs start with you as an employer being knowledgeable about the ADA and being open to these discussions regarding disability and the work needs. Once you're aware of the disability, the first step is determining if the individual meets the definition of disability to begin that reasonable accommodation process. You have an obligation to know the role that you'll play complying with the ADA. In doing so, you will come to see the benefits and values that people with disabilities bring to the table and the diversity they add to the workplace to meet your overall business needs.
So now we are going to take a bite out of learning. So as a further wrap up, we're going to take a bite out of learning and have a discussion with your team. So we have a takeaway card for you to reference with this assigned activity. The activity we're asking you to engage in is to discuss 3 questions as a team or in pairs. The first one is, do you know a person who has a disability, either inside or outside of work? What do you recognize, appreciate, or value about the person? Take a few moments to share with your team. The second one is, what other conditions could be covered under the ADA? And the last one we want you to discuss is, now that you have a better understanding about what the ADA definition of a disability is, what can you do to create awareness within your company or organization? So at this time, what we're going to do is put everybody in breakout rooms, and Anne will.
Evie, I was in mid-sentence. That was awkward.
Sorry. Breakout rooms are not our forte today, obviously.
We didn't even get a countdown clock on that one.
I know that we didn't decide to keep it there because the system was messing up every time. So we're like, we're just going to take it all off and make sure you go in the room.
Yes, but we did get a 1-minute warning. But that's not enough to finish the sentence you're in mid speaking of.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Well, this is good lesson then. So think about this when you guys are delivering this to employers, maybe even giving a 2-minute countdown versus 1, because it's not enough. So good learning tool here. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for doing that. We just kind of wanted, again, to get you guys acclimated to this. You know, if you guys do this over Zoom, kind of this is what you would be doing with people, with employers or whoever you're doing it with. So this is one way to do it. So let's just do a little debrief on the questions. Do we have any volunteers willing to start us on the first question? I mean, again, I get it, I'm doing it with you guys who all work with people with disabilities, but just pretend you're employers at this point.
I was just going to say, we are preaching to the choir we know on this training. So
I can volunteer.
Thanks, Susan. Go ahead.
So on the first question, do you know a person with a disability? One of us mentioned that yes, and this knowledge, I hope I'm phrasing it right, it helps him to be aware of proper planning and facilities and their impact on someone with disabilities that, you know, maybe he didn't think of before, you know, like wheelchair accessibility, things like that.
Great point. Yep. Any other group want to take a stab at that one?
This is Lisa. I
Thanks,
can
Lisa.
go for our group. We talked a lot about just, appreciating their resiliency was a big one. Appreciating the hard work they put into finding a job, working at a job, and just their attitudes and their spirits, and their just ability to be resilient and move through the world that we have. So anyway, that was ours.
Great, thanks, Elisa. Anybody else willing to jump in on that one?
Our group talked about having candid honesty and learning more, increasing their skills, and then having that transformation.
Great, thanks, Heather. Yeah, I like that resiliency, transformation stuff. Again, that we all do this every day. We understand this. All right, how about moving on to number 2? What other conditions could be covered under the ADA? Who wants to jump in on that one?
I will, Steve.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, our group talked about depression. I think especially in the onset of what as humanity has gone through in the last couple of years, PTSD, anxiety, how COVID enhanced that, and also changed our way of life as we once knew it and what was considered normal.
Absolutely, that's a big one now these days for sure. Susan, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, there was one that I heard from our group that I hadn't thought of that I wanted to share. Just, some like non-physical ones, autism, depression and anxiety, PTSD. But in particular, this one that I hadn't heard of, for people with, let's say, a breathing condition like asthma, the fact that in today's world, with COVID, that they're so often required to put on a mask and how that can produce anxiety. And we all know, even if we don't have a breathing condition, there's been times when you're just like, gosh, I just can't breathe the way I want to breathe, or, whatever. So I hadn't heard of that before, and I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's good, Susan. And like you said, with what's been going on the last 1.5, 2 years, you throw the depression in there, you throw the breathing and the asthma and all of that. It's really been put on the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else for number 2?
This is Roxanne, and I can go. We talked too about some of those folks that have an acquired brain injury and how they quote unquote look fine on the outside, but it's all of those things going on with processing and memory and all of that, and how challenging that is for both the employer and the employee. People forget that there's an issue, and so there can be some frustration, and sometimes it just needs a little help to remind people of what the needs are.
Yep, absolutely, Roxanne. Another one being, for example, when the recorded version of this one, I do it along with Haley Moss, who is, as she says, an autistic individual. She's a lawyer down in Florida with autism that is very open about it. But like you said, here she's a lawyer, she's doing motivational speaking all over the place. So it's one of those that you wouldn't look at her and be like, you have a disability. So yep, same kind of concept when it comes to brain injury, autism, and many of the disabilities we work with.
Our group was just starting that question when we got called back. Obesity is something that's been debated significantly, and whether it should be under the ADA or not. I think the most recent is like an appeals court decision or something that said it isn't, but it can affect not only person's mood, confidence, how they're viewed by folks, employers and others, but access issues too. I mean, anybody that's had to squeeze into a bathroom that made them feel a little claustrophobic. I mean, you can imagine what somebody who's considered, obese or morbidly obese faces in situations like that too. So I think that needs to be revisited.
Absolutely. Good point, Frank.
And that is a good one, Frank, because I actually had a consumer that needed to be in a scooter to do the job, and she wanted to do stocking, but the store was like, well, can she do it without actually driving the scooter around? But she couldn't. So that is a good point to bring up.
Yep. All right.
I
So
might,
let's,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I might add that obesity has been considered in some courts and a disability. It's just more severe or morbid obesity that has been considered a disability under the law. But usually it's connected to a condition, which also makes the case. But I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Ann. All right, number 3, now that you have a better understanding about what the ADA definition is, what can you do to create awareness within your company or organization?
I can talk about that. We talked in my group. I was amazed that when they built the stadium, I was job coaching somebody there when they first started, and with all the thousands, millions of dollars they put into that, it was not very well accessible for people in a wheelchair. The first day, the Viking Packer game, we were taking the freight elevators back and forth. And I just could not believe that that was how they had planned. There were private elevators for the players and their families, but they weren't in a reasonable amount of space. But it made to get places, but as an employee, we were taking freight elevators along with all the food and the cargo. I had never been aware of anything like that before, and it just shocked me that they didn't have thought that out better. So I'm acutely aware now of where wheelchairs can and can't go. I had never thought about that, even to push a button on an elevator if you're in a wheelchair and you can't reach it, how hard it is. But I learned a lot that time.
Great point, Mary, thanks. I believe Target Field was much more cognizant of all that, and I believe they pulled in some organizations even to make sure that they had it down when it came to people with disabilities and wheelchairs. So, anybody else? Any other groups? Don't make me start picking on you. I have all your names in front of me.
Mercy, I can go. I was gonna say, kind of going off of Mary. I was working with a job seeker, and I think about, I love the old rustic buildings and whatnot, and they said to me just point blank, I freaking hate them. And I was like, excuse me? But if they don't renovate it, they don't have to do certain compliances with it. And so that was it kind of, I don't want to say a news flash to me, but it also makes me go, I'm going to look at different places a little bit different in terms of accessibility portions, especially when it comes to ramps, simple things of a ramp, or, like doors being big enough or not too heavy of bathroom doors, things like that, that I just take for granted. So it was interesting to think of, there's all these new model buildings, but the older ones can sometimes have accessibility issues if they haven't done any new remodels because they're grandfathered in. And I didn't know that was a case at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is Roxanne again. But even going shopping, how many times have you gone to a store and you can barely walk through between racks of clothes, let alone if you're someone in a scooter or a chair, or stop and think when you're that parent who is in maybe a motorized chair and you've got your kids with you, and I mean, you just don't go to that store. I mean, you can't get around, you can't get between, you can't shop. It's very challenging for folks.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, and this is Frank again. I was trying to imagine if I were an employer who wasn't too aware what I might be thinking at this point, and it also made me think of what I could suggest to an employer I was presenting this to if they were kind of stuck on this, and that would be starting an employee resource group. Do something to take this beyond this presentation and really weave it into your workplace culture, make it evident to your employees how committed you are to this, plug into different events and other opportunities to further raise your awareness throughout the year, so that this is more than just something that is part of an hour or so meeting here today.
Great point, Frank. Yes, that, something that they can walk away with. That was a great point.
This is Jennifer, and when I was in an operations facility, there were monthly safety meetings that were required, but under certain federal contracts, and people with disabilities or disabilities were weaved into the monthly safety talks. So just like you're saying with the awareness, like this is National Disability Month, it would be weaved into their monthly safety talks.
That's a great idea too. Yep.
Another thing we can do as people who already work with people with disabilities is we can outreach to our community and invite our communities into our facilities. That's something that we do. We try to have regular outreach, and that's what we were discussing in our group, that regular outreach meetings to the community, also taking our clients outside of our facilities and into the community for coffee clubs or local restaurants or the library or events and trips, riding the local transit system. That's beneficial to both the community to see the population that we have, and it's beneficial to our clients to learn how to use those systems.
Yes, thank you for that, Mary. I really like that idea of having them come in and then sometimes seeing too that the accommodations that they can make sometimes are really, really minimal, that you guys have done at your organizations already. So. All right, any last comments on that one, or we will move forward?
All right, do you want to go back to that PowerPoint, Marcy, and we'll just show the last couple there, I think. The takeaway card is there. And then we have a for more information screen or slide. And then our resources, the Job Accommodation Network, ADA, and then just a closure slide on the end there. So that is the module that we developed on the ADA. Like we said, this is one in a series of 5. And so they're developed so that the employer can just pull this right off our Careers Force site, and I'll show you that. They can also deliver the training, and we've got the PowerPoints and the takeaway cards if they're more comfortable not showing a recording. Our intent today is to show you all, to train the trainers, so you can take either the recording and you can show it, or we'll give you the scripting and the PowerPoints so that you can deliver the training virtually or in person. So there's lots of different options depending on where we're at with access to those employers and what the employer's comfort level are, and lots of factors. But I'm just going to do a quick screen share. I'm really bad at this. It's asking for advanced sharing. I don't know what that means. Okay. I had it up and now it's not there. Sorry, just one second.
Let me know, Evie, if you can't, and I can pull mine up too.
Okay. Oh, here it is. I'm just, screen sharing is not my thing. Screen sharing to me is breakout rooms to Ann today. Anyway, this is where we're keeping our modules. They're on our Career Force website. So I'll just copy this and put this in the chat in a minute here. But it's a little messed up today. I think they're doing some work on the site. But it's there for you as you go through. It kind of gives a nice intro on what they are, what the modules are. We've talked about most of this today. And then it goes through each of the modules. So the first one we went over, they can watch the video, the takeaway cards are here, and then the PowerPoint presentation without notes is there for people to take away as well. Our second module in the series, and these don't have to be done in any particular order, but we recommend that they go through the modules. If they're going to do all 5, that they go through in numerical order, but they wouldn't have to. The second one, recognizing a request for reasonable accommodation and implementing that request. The third module, self-ID, building a more inclusive culture. It's super important, especially for our federal and state contractors, to promote that self-identification. And people aren't going to do that unless they feel that it's a safe place to do it. So this helps employers have a better understanding of how to do a self-ID campaign and make that an inclusive and safe environment for them. Fourth module, inclusive communications. This kind of goes through the gamut of people with disabilities. I know they cover people who are deaf and hard of hearing in here. I think, Marcy, isn't there some reference to the autism spectrum and cognitive disabilities, but just how to communicate with people with disabilities in the workplace. And then the last module, mental health matters. So just super important. And we've already been talking about that too in your breakout rooms. As we go forward, we're just, launching these first 5, but we hope to, we're collecting feedback from everyone on what they think the next modules should be. And as we can get back together as a group, we plan to build some more modules in. So watch for, in the future down the road a little bit as we launch into some new modules. And just to take us back a second, as we were developing these modules, we had a good idea of what we thought employers would want to know. So we came up with maybe about 10 or 11 topics for modules, and we sent it out to a group of employers and asked them to rank. So that's kind of how we started building out those modules, was really in response to what the employers said they wanted. So now as we go forward, we'll go back to that list and use some of your feedback as you bring this out. So that's the Career Force site. If you plan to go and show or to give the training, please reach out to Marcy or I or a placement coordinator within VRS. All of us have access to the PowerPoint with the notes. So all the scripting is there. You can feel free to change it up based on you and your personality and the way you speak. And we really encourage, like Marcy said, to have a co-presenter, possibly a person that lives with a disability or is impacted. They're going to have some great examples to add in to any of these topics. And it just was really, really helpful. So Frank, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you all would be available to, I know one of the ways that I like to practice something new like this is to role play. But if, we were going to do such a presentation, if one of you would mind offering a little time for us to just role play with you as if you were the employer, get that script down.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah,
either
we
one
also
of
offered, to kind of be by your side to help present that first time. If anybody wants that too, we're more than happy to help walk you through that. And one other thing too, kind of going back a little bit, when Evie was talking about topics is, you know, we're always taking ideas too. So feel free to message me or Evie or Ann or Daisha or any one of us kind of on the committee that of topics that you think would be important for employers. Again, just remember, these are, you know, 10 to 20 minutes, some a little longer, but right around that, because we are just really touching the surface. The goal is to really kind of get in with those employers then. So feel free to reach out to us with any sort of topics you guys think would be important.
All right, any questions about the delivery or career force? Okay.
Can I add one thing, Evie?
Yeah, please.
One thing on that page too is we do have an evaluation link on there. So we highly, highly, highly encourage, if you do deliver this, that that you encourage people to fill out an evaluation, give us feedback. I think it'll help us know further modules that would be helpful to do, to figure out what's working, what's not, and even maybe give feedback to, you know, the delivery and what you can be doing as you continue to provide these modules as well. And then I don't know if you guys were going to mention this, but there's also, if they complete these trainings, we have a virtual bag and virtual badge, excuse me, for them, and some virtual backgrounds like we're showing today. So it's just nice they have access to those things once they complete the evaluation through a link that they can then download those as well.
Thank you, Anne. All right. I'll leave the floor open for a second if there's any last comments or questions. And then we're going to roll into a little bit of some more, we want to be learning from you and talking through. We really want to think about the types of businesses or maybe the size of businesses that maybe your wheels are turning already, like, oh, I know this business would love this, or just kind of want to have a little back and forth about what types of businesses do you have in mind after kind of seeing this, and what types of businesses do you think it might be helpful to go deliver this to? I know I've been approached by a large printing company in Mankato and asked if we would come deliver these modules. So we're going to be planning on that, but that'll be interesting. It's kind of a manufacturing kind of environment. So just those different environments, I think we'll learn a lot from. And Bruce, I see your hand up.
I just want to add, when you talk about large company, I see the opposite. I see this as a small company. I see so many of these day-long webinar things that these businesses get invited to, and they don't have time for their staff or money in their budget for that. But any small business, regardless of a mom or pop, can sit down and watch something like this in a relatively short period of time. So that's what I'm most excited about, is smaller in my area and rural areas that even before COVID, they would never send someone to St. Paul to go to something, you know, that's a huge, huge day-long event, just because they don't have it in their budget. And so something like this isn't going to take up their time, and it doesn't cost them anything. So that's what I'm excited about for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Marcy and I have talked for many years, and you all probably have experienced every October, some businesses will reach out to us because of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And it's their annual come out and talk to us day. So we go out and talk to them, and then we come back and it's crickets for the rest of the year. So this really is a great way to establish a sustained relationship. Like you said, Bruce, it doesn't take a lot of time, but we get to come in, and we get to come in a series. So we hope that really helps with getting those relationships strengthened.
And Chloe also said in the chat that she agrees with Bruce, 50 employees or less, 50 employees or less. Be good.
This is Roxanne again, and I would say presentations at local chambers or local service groups. Again, they're always looking for speakers, and I, for one, would love your notes and that type of thing, because we're very active in our local chambers and our local service groups. And again, it's a great way to get the information out and connect.
Absolutely, Roxanne. Thanks for that.
And I think Dawn Kirchner, I referenced her earlier, is kind of the has had this thought that's turned into this series now. She is with Mayo Clinic, which we all know is massive, but there's so many divisions and little teams within there, and they're starting to, some supervisors are starting to do this series there. So even I think those bigger companies, there's a lot of opportunities. So so just a lot of wheels turning in my head as I'm listening to you guys. So that's good.
What about a business you've been trying to get into or trying to contact? Just kind of like, here, watch this video and then contact us when you're done. We thought that would be kind of a good entry point. Maureen, go ahead.
Yeah, Marcy, I like that. And I just love that these are bite-sized, it's not too long. It could be under half hour and they can deal with that time frame. I was just going to go back to, what Bruce and Chloe had mentioned about the size of business. And at first I was thinking the smaller mid-size too, because, some of the larger businesses have I think a better understanding of ADA and those kinds of things. But as we know, a lot of the frontline supervisors and managers don't, and they are nervous about reasonable accommodations and things like that. So I think it could be really helpful. The other thing Evie had mentioned, like for future modules, I don't know how you would do this, but I still get, and I'm sure everybody on the call does here, employers, I just had one last week. Well, we have some jobs we think might be good for people with disabilities. And, so there, and then we, Don Muller and I met with a larger employer, and you'd think they would have a different perception, but they were still like saying, looking at jobs that people with disabilities could do. And so I would love something where, we can show what people with disabilities can do, and it's not just pigeonholed. So just a thought.
It's a great idea. Yep. I see Ann feverishly taking notes. These are note taker, and like Evie said, she kept us together on this. So thanks.
Yes, this is Kara, and I think maybe even trying to reach out to kind of non-traditional companies. I'm a job coach with Opportunity Partners, and a lot of my folks work at grocery stores, restaurants, fast food, kind of the service industry. Maybe approach some of those technical companies that need somebody to assemble something, or do those types of jobs that maybe they just haven't thought about hiring population that we work with. And they're going to get a hard-working person. They're going to get somebody that's going to show up every day, really do a good job and enjoy their work. But I think a lot of those types of companies outside of kind of the service industry, I mean, I've had people also at hotels doing housekeeping, that sort of thing. Yeah, get some of those technical companies, and whether they're small or larger companies, bring them in and show them what the folks can do.
I really like that. And I think too, as I'm listening to you, it doesn't just have to be proactive, it may be responsive too. So as you're out job coaching with a new employer, maybe they say, yes, I'll hire this person who's deaf, and we have no idea what to do. Maybe they could watch the inclusive communication module. I can see people reacting to a new employee with a disability and maybe wanting more training. So it may be responsive too. So we'll have to watch for that.
If you have a moment, I have an idea.
Okay, go ahead, Mary, and then I see Lori's going to jump in after that. So go ahead, Mary.
Okay. So something that I did in my facility is I reach out to a local cleaning service, ServiceMaster, and we offered up our employees to fill their sites, and we run the schedule for ServiceMaster. So it's a mutually beneficial agreement. They get paid for the contracts and the buildings we clean, and pretty much anybody in our facility who is capable of cleaning on any level has a job. And we can use people interchangeably, so there's never a call in. Service master never has to worry about not having a site cleaned or done. And all of our people have job coaches, and except for those who have graduated out of the job coach. And then we've made them mentors to other people who yet haven't graduated from the job coaching. And so it's really beneficial to both our people and to the community employer. And we went from having 3 or 4 people employed in our very small community to having over 27.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you can reach out to I know that my service master representative would be more than happy to initially talk to other service master, and it's, you know, it's Minnesota wide.
Yeah. That's great, Mary. Yeah. And so have they been real responsive at the corporate level, just about people with disabilities in general then too?
Yes, ma'am, they have. And we have used this initial program as an example, you know, because I work for ODC. And so since I run the scheduling for them, he gets the sites, he gets paid for the sites, he pays our employees, and we pay our job coaches. So he doesn't have to run this additional schedule or have to run the additional employees because I handle all of that for him.
Right.
And so we use this model, and now I don't know if you guys realize how small our communities are up here in the very, very north, but you know, 60 miles away in another small community of Vedette, now we've reached over into that community in the service master model as well.
Very cool.
So I do feel like it's a growing model, and I feel like if we could get it out to other service masters or other cleaning companies, or even other restaurants or hotels, if they, you know, if it's mutually beneficial, because they don't have to have supervisors and they don't have to supervise their employees. We do all of that.
Right.
And we ensure that the work is done and done to top quality. And they just pay the employees and we handle the sites.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Mary. Lori.
Complete left turn from that topic. You were asking about ideas of where to share this out. And in our small breakout room, we were kind of discussing, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we had more access to the HR professionals? And I think we'd all agree with that. Has anybody, or is it an idea to really target those SHRM chapters? And do they bring speakers in? And is that a place? I know that with Maxability, we've certainly tried to, we have, what is it called, Evie? Those educational credits or whatever it's called. Anyway, so maybe that's where we go to get their ear and get it started. So I was just going to throw that out there. I'm sure you thought of it. But.
Yeah, and I think Roxanne had mentioned it earlier, even like the chambers, so kind of along those same lines, but absolutely, I would say if you have a local connection with your SHRM, with your chamber, with anything like that, that, you know, you can get in front of a group of employers, absolutely. I think we've been talking about, I'm on a couple different things, so I think we've been talking about like the SHRM credits that they need and how we can kind of move forward with that and get them some credits for this, so. Yep, great idea, Lori.
Chandra. Hi, Chandra.
Hello. So I just had a thought when we were talking about that and like getting it out to people. And I think one of the things that we run into is that, you know, we've got a lot of people who've been in the business for a long time and they just kind of forget that they need to be doing things. So one idea would be getting these out to even like post-secondary. So looking at people who are in like business programs or majoring in human resources that we know are going to be into the hiring and business world forever and who are younger and can hopefully just learn it and carry it on with them forever and ever. So kind of starting at, you know, with those people and having that resource from the get-go for them as part of their education.
That's a great idea.
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for all the ideas, everyone. We are excited to do this. We're just going to I think our last piece is going to be, we're going to show you a recorded, just a couple minutes of a recorded session. So you can see, and if an employer goes onto that site or you do, you can pull that down and just show it. That's an alternative to delivering the training with the PowerPoint. So I'm just going to show this. We hope.
All right, can you see the inclusive communication one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Daisha Van Alstyne, Program Specialist with State Services for the Blind's Workforce Development Unit. Since this module is about inclusive communication, we wanted to model a verbal visual description of ourselves to be more inclusive. So I'm a white female with long light brown hair. I'm wearing black frame glasses and a black top. Welcome to this bite-sized learning module called Inclusive Communication. To begin this module, we felt it was important to explain why this and other disability modules for businesses were created. Disabilities affect 25% of Americans and influence today's drive for a strong economy and diverse workforce. The intent of these modules is to help businesses in their disability inclusion efforts and to provide disability education that is simple, impactful, and relatable. Each module can be delivered either virtually or in person at a team meeting or huddle. The goal of these modules is to further your work group's understanding of various disability topics and ways of creating an inclusive work environment to successfully hire, onboard, and retain employees with disabilities. Today's module is just one in a series. We encourage you to watch them all to learn more about the opportunities in this disability inclusion space.
Hi, hello, my name is Marissa, and I am a clinical researcher coordinator at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I'm a white female with shoulder length brown hair, blue eyes, and I'm wearing a black long sleeve black top. And I'm going to go through what are the learning objectives for today. First of all, we want you to know what the meaning of inclusive communication is and why is it important. We also want to understand what unconscious bias and how that affects your communication style, and understand the value of individuals' preferences for effective communication. Find ways to increase your comfort in approaching communication with a coworker with a disability, and identify common strategies that have worked for others, or maybe all needs, all different kinds of needs. Okay, so we're going to start this module by talking about what does it mean, inclusive communication. Inclusive communication is effective communication, respectful, accurate, and inclusive of all, enabling everyone to contribute diverse perspectives and feel like they belong. Inclusive communication means sharing information in a way that everybody can understand. It means making sure that you recognize that people understand and express themselves in different ways. It means getting information and expressing yourself in ways that meets your needs. Inclusive communication relates to all modes of communication: written information, online information, telephone, and face-to-face. Inclusive communication makes services more accessible for everyone. It will help to achieve successful outcomes for individuals and the wider community. It enables people to live more independently and to participate in public life. Inclusive language is language that shows sensitivity, respect, and open-mindedness, and most importantly, the person first.
Have you ever been worried?
Is that good, Ev?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we just kind of wanted to show you guys that so you get an understanding of kind of that's what the recorded versions are. In every one of the modules, the first slide usually has kind of it's the same thing. It explains why the modules were done and that they're, 10, 15, 20 minutes long. That inclusive communication one's a little bit longer because of the interpreter. But just wanted to, again, show you that. Thought it was a pretty neat one. We had to kind of work with that to move it around because the 3 on the screen got a little challenging to always see the PowerPoint, but a little lag playing this in Zoom. Okay. Okay, good to know. So just again, wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on that. So again, we showed you in the very beginning where you would present it as Evie and I did versus just sending out the recording from the last one. So kind of any last thoughts, last comments on this?
I just wanted to say too, at VRS, we have, I think it's about an hour-long PowerPoint, what I was talking about, our typical A to Z disability in an hour that we can go out and give to businesses. This is also another tool that we're going to start using now, this 5 modules over a series of time. And Marcy and I and some others from Voc Rehab, and I'm not sure if any of our providers went, but we also had the windmills training, which is training for businesses. Some of those modules are like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So it's just kind of nice to have that spectrum of training where we have, you know, we can go out, and I'm sure a lot of your agencies have just kind of your overview that you come out and give. And this is another tool. So hoping that all of you can use it. Like I mentioned earlier, reach out to Marcy or I, or any placement coordinator with Voc Rehab Services that you're connected with. We all have access to the scripting that goes with those PowerPoints, and we're happy to share them.
And this is Anne. I just might add too that we are wanting as much as possible to kind of track how often the training is happening, and that's a driver in our goals for some of our success, is just to see how much impact we're making and getting out there. So certainly stay in touch with us, because we'd love to add that to our data as well as we look at these trainings and what we could be doing more of or differently going forward.
Awesome.
Any
Unless
last
you-
comments, last questions?
All right, go forth and spread the bite-sized learning.
That's right. And we'll make this recording available to you. I'll get the links to Marcy and Evie to push out to you all. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Thanks for all the sharing. It was great seeing you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.